Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. The House is set to vote on the nearly $2 trillion relief bill today. But even if it's passed, it seems one item there will be blocked in the Senate. Markets look like they're preparing for inflation, but gold and silver aren't behaving as they should. We ask why. And Nevada drivers are piling in for class action lawsuits against auto insurance companies. Are they charging customers too much right now? That and more coming up on NTD Business. U.S. consumer spending increased by the most in 7 months in January. As government dished out more relief money to households, consumer spending accounts for more than 2/3 of U.S. economic activity. It jumped 2.4% last month, ending 2 straight monthly declines. Consumers bought motor vehicles, recreation goods, food and beverages. They also spent more on services like hotels and restaurants, as well as doctor's visits. Stimulus money also boosted personal income. It's up 10%, the largest increase since last April. Some of that money was stashed away, hoisting the savings rate to over 20%. So with all the extra money in the system, many are fearing the price of goods and services will rise. In other words, we'll see inflation. We see signs of it already in the price of things like food, industrial metals, and other commodities. But the precious metals, gold and silver, for example, have been battered this week. They're supposed to be an inflation hedge. Ask Lance Roberts, Chief Strategist at Real Investment Advice, why that might be.
That's really an interesting conundrum, and because normally what you would expect is that in an environment where you're expecting a lot of inflationary pressure, gold in particular should be reflecting that fear of inflation. Gold is supposed to be hedged for inflation, but we didn't really see that occur here just recently. We saw some money run into Bitcoin as quote unquote an inflation hedge, but that's more of a psychological trade for the moment. But I really don't have a good answer why gold isn't responding here. I think it will at some point, but it just hasn't yet.
Interesting. I was watching it as well myself. It's an interesting point. What do you think some of it's to do with this data today? We have retail sales are up. We have another savings, I believe. Personal savings are up as well. These surprise you, these numbers?
Well, some of the numbers economic that we're seeing come out, they're not exactly what they appear to be. For instance, retail sales is an example. Personal savings, that's a really good example there. The data on the surface seems to be really good, but once you really kind of dig down into the numbers, what you start finding out is for instance, in the savings rate, that's mostly driven by the individuals at the top 20% of your income brackets. The bottom 80% still living really paycheck to paycheck. I mean, think about it this way. We're clipping off 1 million people a week in jobless claims when you include the public unemployment assistance claims. We've been doing that for a full year now since the pandemic started. So how are people saving money when 1 million people a week are losing their job? So really this, you've got to take some of these economic numbers and take them with a grain of salt, and particularly when they're driven on surveys or sentiments in particular about what happened last year. So the difference between now and last year is obviously better, but it's still not good. And that's the real point here.
Interesting point. Where do you think the markets might go, say, next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Well, we're still on sell signals across the board in terms of most of our money flow signals are still negative. Markets are getting a little bit oversold here on a short-term basis. Wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a counter trend rally here over the next week or two. Maybe yields come back here a little bit. They've had a big move, kind of see some realignment. But I think ultimately as we get into April, May, June, if we do start to see some more of the stimulus come in from the Biden stimulus program, that is going to kick up more inflationary pressures. And I think we wind up with a bigger sell-off sometime this summer.
Very good. Lance, appreciate it as always. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
But Washington doesn't seem worried about inflation. The House is preparing to vote on President Biden's almost $2 trillion relief bill. Republicans are mostly against it, but Democrats say it's needed and hope to push it through, even without Republican support.
The House is set to vote on the $1.9 trillion relief bill Friday. Democrats say Americans need the help.
And this is a good bill. This is good news for the American people. People have been hurting. They want action. They need help.
Republicans say it's too big and bloated with Democrat pet projects unrelated to the pandemic.
It's filled with items completely unrelated to the pandemic.
What we're arguing for is to target that relief, not have a grab bag stimulus.
Some also say there's still money left over from the previous bills.
Or that roughly $1 trillion in COVID funding remains unspent from the 5 prior bipartisan packages.
A group of Senate Republicans offered Biden a slimmed-down alternative, but it didn't go anywhere. Democrats hold the majority in the House, and they hope to push the bill through under special rules without Republican support. Among the big-ticket items in the bill are $1,400 stimulus checks, a $400 per week jobless benefit through August 29th, money for vaccines and testing, small businesses, as well as for state and local government. One item that won't be in the Senate version is the $15 federal minimum wage hike. The Senate parliamentarian ruled against the minimum wage portion of the bill under the budget rules Democrats plan to use to pass the bill. It will still be in the House version Friday, but will be removed before the Senate takes it up.
But Costco doesn't care if the new minimum wage is left out completely. It's raising its to $16 an hour anyway. Good news if you're working there. The pay hike should take effect as early as next week. The chain has around 180,000 employees in the U.S. and 90% of them work hourly. But some Democrats won't give up on their own minimum wage dream so easily. Bernie Sanders says he's working on just taxing businesses more if they don't pay at least $15. That would probably be allowed under the budget reconciliation strategy. Sanders is the Senate Budget Committee chairman at the moment. And President Biden's often said he would raise taxes on corporates. But a new think tank report says that would be bad news for the economy, especially as it tries to bounce back from the pandemic. NTD's Don Tran has the details.
President Biden and some lawmakers in Congress proposed several changes to the country's tax code. One is raising the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. The Tax Foundation found the tax hike would eliminate over 150,000 jobs, lower wages by 0.7%, and reduce long-run economic output by 0.8%.
A big portion of these corporate tax increases will affect workers' wages, and it will affect the retirement and investment accounts of everyday Americans. Something like 40% of corporate stocks are owned by workers and by middle-class Americans. And so they may see a reduced value of those accounts if you raise those rates too far.
After the tax cuts in 2017, companies big and small were incentivized to make long-term investments and increase their workers' wages. The Tax Foundation said this 180-degree turn in tax policy would cause uncertainty among companies, which will stop them from making investments. It will also cause about a 1.5% drop in after-tax income for the bottom 20% of income earners.
And so while that may not seem like a lot in percentage terms, it's actually a pretty significant amount for someone who is of low income, who has potentially been struggling throughout the pandemic and trying to stay afloat and wants to improve their life coming out of the pandemic and maximizing their economic opportunity.
The Tax Foundation said the purpose of their report is to caution policymakers from bad ideas, but it also contains good ideas that may get bipartisan interest in the long run.
Our advice for policymakers is not to rush into tax increases right now, to ensure that we can have a robust recovery, which will be really important over the next year as the public health situation improves and folks get back to work and the economy reopens.
On the other hand, the tax hike would raise over $800 billion in tax revenue over the next 10 years. The Tax Foundation suspects the revenue will go to additional spending on infrastructure and research and development. Don Tran, NTD News.
A federal judge says the CDC can't stop landlords from evicting tenants during the pandemic. Apparently, there's no constitutional authority to make the rule.
The rule issued by the CDC makes it a crime for a landlord to evict certain tenants due to the CCP virus. In practice, the rule applies to almost any tenant, including individuals making less than $99,000 a year. Violators face up to a year in prison and fines of up to $250,000. The rule was set to expire in September, but it continues to be extended. Now it goes through March. Kimberly Herman is general counsel for one of the legal foundations representing the plaintiffs. She says the CDC's order violates private property rights under the veil of COVID-19 precautions. U.S. District Judge John Barker issued the ruling. He writes that the Constitution does not grant the federal government power to enforce an eviction moratorium. He notes his ruling does not apply to states which have long held the power to regulate evictions. Herman says federal courts are the primary defense against federal overreach. She says her organization has won similar cases over the decades, and they are preparing cases across the constitutional spectrum to defend against unrestrained government action.
Since people aren't driving as much, are auto insurance companies overcharging clients? Drivers in Nevada think so. They're filing class action lawsuits saying premiums should be lower during the pandemic.
Drivers accuse insurance companies of overcharging during the lockdowns, a time of dramatically lower driving. The Consumer Federation of America asked them to pay back some of the premiums, and most did in April and May.
But they only paid about half of what they should have. They paid about $10 billion, and they should have paid about $20. And most companies did nothing. Most companies just pocketed the money.
Law firm Egglet Adams is filing a lawsuit against 10 major auto insurance companies.
Clear in Nevada, the insurance companies cannot charge excessive premiums to their insureds, to their customers, and that's exactly what they did here.
The firm says insurers made record profits as a result of the pandemic. Nevada law requires them to return excessive premiums to customers.
Reached their contract with their insureds, and they engaged in bad faith, as well as they violated the Nevada's Deceptive Trade Practices Act.
State Farm, America's largest insurer, says the lawsuit doesn't substantiate the allegations. Nationwide said higher repair costs are preventing low premiums. And Allstate says it was the first insurer to lower premiums during the pandemic. The firm claims it's provided nearly $1 billion in paybacks to customers.
And stocks ended a bumpy week, mostly lower on Wall Street today. The Dow fell 470 points or 1.5%, S&P 500 lost 18 points or 0.47%, but the Nasdaq added 73 points or 0.56%. Really needed it. All three major indexes lost for the week, but all are up around 1 to 4% for the month, about that. The 10-year Treasury yield eased today. The PCE index, though, which is the Fed's preferred measurement for inflation, it rose 0.3%. It's up 1.5% for the year. Do you have Tesla stock? Why? Elon Musk's persona, future of electric vehicle market? Well, Barclays Bank says it might actually have a lot to do with Reddit.
A recent Barclays study says Tesla shares might be driven more by Reddit posts than fundamentals. Barclays looked at data from the Wall Street Bets forum on Reddit. It found a correlation between big increases in posts about Tesla and outsized returns in Tesla stock a few days later. One investment expert says, on the one hand, it makes sense that more hype about a company will impact its stock price.
But on the other hand, correlation alone doesn't mean causation per se. And I think it's too early at this stage to really understand how Reddit and how other online communities have and are going to be able to influence the market.
Many investors view Tesla as one of the original meme stocks, driven more by social media than valuation. Tesla did post its first net profit in 2020, but it didn't come from car sales. It came from selling regulatory credits to other car makers that didn't meet state zero emissions targets. As far as the recent volatility, Vermillion says we're seeing the old model of finance collide with this new era of retail investors.
I think this is wave 2 of the retail investor. Wave 1 being, over the last decade and a half, people gaining access to online trading, which didn't exist until really the 90s. And now this is wave 2. Not only can they trade online, they can do it cheaply, and they can do it in groups as opposed to alone.
He says it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
AT&T is offloading its struggling satellite TV service DirecTV. The communications giant has agreed to sell its stake to private equity firm TPG. As part of the deal, the two companies will create a new business called New DirecTV. AT&T bought DirecTV 6 years ago in a transaction that some analysts called doomed from the start. And the communications giant has been trying to unload DirecTV for a while, but now it says the new venture can still create future value opportunities. And still to come, Zillow gets bold with its new estimate tool. It's so confident it'll even make you cash offer based on it. And get ready for the most expensive auto recall in history. Hyundai has to replace batteries in over 80,000 electric vehicles. Find out why in just a minute.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of The Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
Have you ever wondered if you can actually sell your home for what Zillow says it's worth? The real estate website is now putting its money where its mouth is, saying, yes, you can. Zillow will now use its Zestimate tool to make cash offers on homes across many markets. The company has been buying homes for a few years now through Zillow Offers. The difference is with the old model, Zillow required homeowners to fill out a questionnaire, sometimes submit photos to get the cash offer. Now, the company is so confident in its estimates, you can also get an initial offer at that price. Of course, you won't see all of it. The company still takes 7.5% off the top for itself as a fee, which of course is much higher than typical closing costs, and homes are also subject to inspection before a sale can be completed. And Hyundai is recalling 82,000 electric cars globally. They need to replace the batteries after 15 reports of fires. The latest move mainly applies to its best-selling electric vehicle, the Kona. No one was hurt in any of the fires, and none of the fires took place in the United States, but the recall is one of the most expensive in history. Replacing an entire battery on an electric car isn't easy. It's like replacing an entire engine on a gas-powered car. It'll cost Hyundai about $11,000 per car on average. That's just under $1 billion in total. Maybe somebody should tell Airbus. The plane maker is working on a hybrid electric propulsion engine. It's one option to reduce emissions. The company says its current jets produce more than 1 million tons of CO2 each over their lifetimes.
Airbus said on Friday it's working on hybrid electric propulsion technology. They say a combination of electric with other types of engine power is one way to start reducing CO2 emissions. Previously, Airbus has mainly publicised hydrogen as an energy source for future planes. It's pledged its first hydrogen-powered commercial aircraft for 2035. But now they say they are exploring a variety of hybrid electric and hydrogen technologies. Experts say that hydrogen technology has challenges for larger planes. Planned replacement of its 150-seat A320 would likely enter service in the 2030s. That would be a hybrid of hydrogen power and electric. Engine makers are now actively exploring open rotor engines with visible blades to combine traditional engines with electric. An Airbus spokesman said only a combination of technologies, including hydrogen, will help us aim for zero emission. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
Still to come. Are you struggling to pay your internet bill? You might qualify for a new internet subsidy. You have the details. And hairdressers put their creativity to good use by reinventing their businesses in the pandemic era. That and more in just a minute.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
The Federal Communications Commission has approved a new internet subsidy for families struggling during the pandemic. Eligible households can get a credit of up to $50 a month on their internet bills. It also includes a one-time discount of $100 for one computer or tablet. Money for the program comes from last year's relief package. Congress gave the FCC $3 billion. Now sign-ups for the new benefits could begin within the next 60 days. Anyone on food stamps, Medicaid, or have received a Pell Grant or lost their job during the pandemic is eligible for the subsidy. And take a look at this next picture we're going to show you and answer the following question. Would you pay $35 for this bowl at a yard sale? The smart money might appear to be no way, but the person who did could get $500,000 when it's auctioned next month. That's because this 6-inch bowl is actually about 600 years old. It was made during the Ming Dynasty in China between 1403 and 1424. As for how it ended up in a yard sale in Connecticut, that's a complete mystery. Now, before you go blowing your retirement nest egg on dinnerware at yard sales, know that only 6 similar bowls are known to exist, most of them in museums as far as we know. None were purchased at yard sales. And if you're getting hairstyling tips from YouTube these days, you're not alone. A YouTube Trends report says in 2020, people turned to the site in droves to learn how to take care of their hair. Hairdressers are also embracing the digital world, from making video content to selling products online. And here's the story of one high-end salon in London seeing a surge in demand.
Even though Michael Van Clark's hair salon is closed under the lockdown, that hasn't stopped his business from growing online.
We've had to pivot, like most businesses, and really accelerated a move online, which we started in a big way probably 3 years ago. That took a huge boost last March when we went into first lockdown, and has continued to grow exponentially since then.
His central London salon used to be full of customers. Now it's stacked with boxes of hair products, which he sells online to 4 different countries. He says one flagship product sold 1,500% more during England's first lockdown, compared to the same period in 2019. Now in lockdown 3, he's struggling to keep up with demand. He's also engaging customers with more content on YouTube and Instagram, like tutorials on how to achieve certain hairstyles.
not just styling tips, how to shampoo, how to colour your hair at home, which was a big one from the first lockdown and has continued to be.
Customers can also book one-on-one consultations by video call.
Some clients want hand-holding all the way through their tint process, and we will do that too if they want to. So it's technicians showing exactly how to apply step by step all the way through.
Van Clark is one of several UK hairdressers that have gone digital. One salon is offering live Q&As on Instagram. Another one delivers hair products to customers' doors, then teaches them how to use the product through a video call.
Van Clark says lockdown could actually be a good time to improve the condition of your hair. He says people might be doing less aggressive heat styling, and because we're outside less, there's less damage from UV rays of the sun. There you go. That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. Have a nice weekend. We'll see you Monday.
We'll be streaming the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, live on our website this weekend. You can join our live stream Friday through Sunday all day at ntd.com, but only on our website. You won't find it on YouTube because we need to protect our channel from video removals and possible strikes. We are live streaming all the speakers, including former President Donald Trump. He's expected to speak at the conference on Sunday. It will be his first public appearance since leaving the White House. We hope to see you there.